We are continuing our effort today with the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book that we've been working on. We're currently working on converting light to Xaryxis. Hold on, let me check my signal here real quick. Currently working on converting light to Xaryxis. Hold on, let me check my signal here. Cool, sounds pretty solid. If you follow me on Twitter, I've just posted that I'm live on Twitter. We all know how YouTube works, so like, subscribe. I have 111 subscribers right now and about 800 hours of watched content, which is awesome. Apparently, folks are watching cartography a lot more than text design. Go figure. But that's exciting news. Well, we're building an audience, so like and subscribe and share and yada yada to help me continue building momentum if you are interested in helping that effort. What kind of effort would you be helping? If you want to check in the description down below, there is a link to a bunch of books I've made on the DMsGuild already, and you can read them cover to cover without costing you a dime. Because chances are, if you're into the kind of stuff that I build, you'll probably want to support the work. So it's pretty affordable. There's a lot of pay what you want stuff, as well as some pretty strong discounts in the bundle that is linked down below. Beyond that, this content that we are working on has playtest as well. If you go to the Patreon link down below, it gives you a descriptive link. The about page, as it were, has a link to this Xaryxis content that we're working on right now. So here's the Ebon snare that's in part 2, chapter 4. Section is called Nights. Oh, wait, you can't see that. This is the cover that we've made for this. Hold on, real quick. I selfishly forgot you guys can't see what we're looking at. So give me a hot second here to get my screens fixed on. There we go. Okay, cool. So this is the cover that we've been working on. We're referring to the playtest document for Spelljammer's Combat and Exploration. And towards the end of the document that you guys are looking at, it has the Light of Xaryxis conversion notes that we are currently working on. The redesign for the playtest is almost done. So we're going to have more playtesting on Thursday. And this is here the cover here. Here's what we're working on. There is Terrors of the Void, A Friend Indeed, Nightspider, Dead Ahead. In chapter 3, you were lured into pursuing, or rather, you were lured into looking at a words, Kearney, a derelict nautiloid that is used as as bait to pull your ship in for a neogi Nightspider to take a shot at. So they'll try to, steal your ship. So watch out for that stuff. So what we're doing here is we are creating a map to explore that environment. And so I am just working on. Okay, so when we were here last time, we were talking about this spiraling effect, where you can pan in and out. And where is our... There it is. And okay, so we were talking like if this is the... Why don't I have my... Where's my grid proper? Hold on. Okay, cool. So the way we were talking was we would spiral out, right? You start at the 500-foot scale, and then as you find your way out of the asteroid field here, you start to spiral your way out of the complex, which is at the 500-foot scale, and then the 1-mile scale, then the 10-mile scale, then the 100-mile scale, then the 1,000-mile scale. And if you're able to escape at that point, like get to the edge of the asteroid field, then you can blip out and ramp up to 10,000 miles per square. A wild space orrery can only detect a ship up to 100,000 miles away. So if you're operating on a grid of 10,000 miles squares, detect a ship 100,000 miles away. If you're on a grid of 1,000 miles. You can only do 10. Sorry, backing it up. 100 million miles per day is the speed that they assign to a is the arbitrary maximum speed that a the word I'm looking for is Spelljammer ship. Thank you. Yeah, the max speed that a Spelljammer ship can move at is 100 million miles per day. So that translates into 10,000 miles every 6 seconds. And that doesn't account for any additional movement that the ship would have at the square level here. So squares at most can be 1,000 miles per square for Spelljammer ships to move, because then if you have, like, say 6 squares of movement, or if it's like a heavy armor metal heavy ship, then it's 4 squares per move. But you have your object interaction, which acts as a movement action at the 5-foot scale, and then you have your own action, which you could use for the dash, which takes you from either 8 to 12 squares at 1,000 miles. And then if you're a rogue, you get your bonus action that you could use for a dash. And there's other classes like monk and stuff that can do that. That would allow you to also dash. Could potentially take you up to 16 squares in a round, or 18 squares in a round, or 12 squares in a heavy tank. But at the long term, that's still roughly 10,000 miles in a square, depending on your action economy. Hey man, how you doing? Words are hard, man, especially when you haven't had any coffee yet. So this session is brought to us by coffee. Coffee. Okay, great. So if you're at most moving 10,000, I mean, if you break it down from 24 hours to 2 hours, roughly a tenth of it, which is roughly 10 minutes. 120 minutes breaks down to roughly 10 minutes to 1 minute to 1 round. And that's your that's your maximum capacity. That's your minimum span of time in a D&D campaign. And there's enough fudge room between that 24 hours to 2 hours and 120 minutes to 10 minutes that you can easily fudge. Well, how can you move? How can you move 18 squares in a round if your maximum speed is 10,000 miles? And the answer is shut up. It's just rough math. Do you really want to break your brain on physics, or do you want to have a functioning 3-dimensional space combat simulator that uses the same 5e mechanics as your character? So all you have to do is pan in and out of maps for you to do the exact same stuff round to round. Speaking of which, before I really get into the design stuff, design stuff, this is not in the playtest content that you guys are looking at yet. This is still in my my conversion system that will up into the this is the alpha test section, which we'll have in the Patreon link down below, where it says in command of combat, in command of armies, guilds, and kingdoms. That's where a lot of this playtest document is already sitting inside of. But here on screen, we've been rebuilding the Spelljammer command roles based on the feedback from our playtesters on Thursday for the past few months. So we've broken it down into a chart explaining the different roles of a character, of a crew member on a ship, and then the different interactions or action economy that exists inside of a round. There's object interaction, there's verbal commands, there's actions, there's this should say, yeah, attack action. Why is that crumpled up like that? Thank you. Let's spread the love a bit. Check. Okay, great. So you got your object interaction once per round. You got verbal action for free. You've got an action, which could be broken into attack actions for multiple attacks per action. You have a bonus action, and then you have reactions. So depending on what role you're playing on a ship, not bosun and sail swan and all that garbage, because there is no rigging. I mean, there's rigging in Spelljammer, but in 5e, you don't actually need a crew to fly your ship. You just got to staple your concentration and attunement into a flying chair that you bolt to a giant ship, and now you're flying. And then you can bolt other pieces of machinery that allows you to increase your awareness beyond the limits of your ship's shell, so that you can interact with the multiverse beyond. So if you're a pilot, you can use an object interaction like a move to move your either 4 or 6 squares, or a variable in there depending on what you are. Your verbal command, as a pilot, doesn't have one. As an action, you can attack with melee weapons like claw, like grappling claws or rams, depending on your reach. If you're at the 5 foot or 50 foot scale, if you're at the 50 foot scale, they need to be adjacent for you to be able to make a melee attack. Because the 50 foot scale is like being a large sized creature in a space. A spaceship at the 50 foot scale is like being a large sized creature at the 5 foot scale, and that you're taking up, like we have up here, you're taking up multiple squares of space. Like a hammerhead ship is a 250 foot long vessel, so it fills a 5x5 space, versus your wasp ship, which is only 80 feet long, fills a 2x2 space. So like if this is your ship, you would be operating as a large sized creature at the 5 foot scale, even though it's actually, these are 50 foot scale, and each one of these squares is 500 feet, which you can see here. Here's your hammerhead ship at the 500 foot scale. It's as though you were a halfling. A hammerhead ship is as though you were a halfling at the 500 foot scale. A small sized creature that uses a 5 foot space, but doesn't quite fill it. And then at the 500 foot scale, a wasp is more like a pixie, a tiny sized creature sitting inside its 500 foot space. But still, 500 foot space, the minimum size you can have your ship is 1 square, which we're seeing here. And then as you zoom in at the 5 foot scale, this is, your characters will be running around, and here's doors, and here's a trap door to lead up to the top, and here's a 10 by 10 space at the 5 foot scale that a ballista fits inside of. So it all curves into each other. So while we're building encounters, like we've talked about in a lot of the streams before, if you check the playlists that I have for In Command and Spelljammer, we have a side map. So we'd have like the main map here, we'd have the main map, which has like asteroids and stuff like that at the 500 foot scale. And then we have a side map, and on Roll20, this is super easy to do, all in the same page, but you could also have multiple tabs set up if you wanted to. But at the tabletop, having different tables set up for different scales, or if you're using the 500 foot scale for maneuvering around space at the 500 foot scale on a VTT, and then the 50 foot and the 5 foot scale be on the actual kitchen table map. That works well. But a 5x5 space, you got your ship here and you get your ship here. That looks like at the 500 foot scale, like your two ships here, like I just showed you. So if you get your ships adjacent to each other, you can zoom in, or you can scale in to the at the 50 foot scale. And then if you really want to board another ship or whatever, you can scale in again as part of your movement. I move 4 squares and I zoom in. I move 6 squares and I zoom in. You can zoom in as a free action during your action economy. So just to make things a little bit more interesting, if I'm here and there's an enemy ship here, and then we'll get to work. Here I can, like, if I have 6 squares, I can go 1 square, 2 square, 3 square, 4 square, and then I can zoom in, and each one of these squares then becomes like this. And now I'm in this ship here, and that was 4 squares, 5 squares, 6 squares, and now that I'm adjacent here, I can make like a grappling attack, or I can make a ram attack, depending on what kind of weapons I'm equipped with. But I don't have any rams at all, but I want to ram anyway, I can do that. My ship will take damage too, because I'm not properly fortified to do it. At this scale, after I ram the next round, I could then scale in again, as we saw here at the 5 foot scale, and have the maps of the ships on the side, so that when we scale into the 5 foot scale, we can then do boarding crew and like jumping across, like Hadozi yeeting across to the other side, stuff like that. So that's the kind of scale that we're working with, but it also scales out. So the 5 foot, so you have the 5 foot, let's get rid of the spiral here. Back to the spiral. Okay, so if we're starting in the center of an asteroid field at the 5 foot scale, where you're boarding a nautiloid derelict and salvaging it, and then you span out to the 50 foot scale, where you're taking things from the nautiloid and you're putting it on your ship, and then you scan out again to the 500 foot scale, your ship is going to take off and leave from the derelict vessel in the asteroid field. You can't move 10,000 miles per round because you're in an asteroid field. If you ramp up and try to Stargate out of there, you're going to ram into a rock, and you're going to take crash damage, dealing like 20d6 times 10 damage to your ship, and your ship only has like 300 hit points. You're going to decimate your ship. So you have to ease your way out of there. You have the 500 foot scale to navigate through some asteroids. You can ramp up to the 1 mile square, then the 10 mile square. Next round, 100 mile square, 1,000 mile square. You're now at maximum speed, If you're being pursued by another ship at that 1,000 miles per square, you can upscale again to not increase your speed per round, but increase your distance. So it takes more rounds for them to attempt to catch up with you, to the 1 round to the 1 minute scale. And at that point, you jump off of view because an orrery only has a 100,000 mile limit view of seeing you. So if each square is theoretically 10,000 miles per square in a round, you're far beyond the range of what that orrery would be able to detect. So as soon as you leave the 1,000 mile square and you upscale to the 10,000 mile square and you have any movement left in your round, that increases time to a minute, and you blip off screen, and now they have to spend at least a minute to try to see if they can find you again on the orrery, and if they can't, you're gone. They can't catch up with you again. So they have multiple rounds to try to damage you, try to hook you, try to drag you down so that they can board you and take your ship. But they've got like maybe 3 or 4 rounds, coincidentally, of them being able to do that and keep you from yeeting out. So what we want to do is we want to build an asteroid field that's going to take you from getting into it because of the distress signal that the nautiloid is blipping. So they want to lead you in to check out the wreckage, and while you're on the wreckage, they want to show up and take your ship. There's just not a lot on the wreckage, so you get back to your ship before the neogi is able to destroy you. So right now what we're working on this ramping up momentum thing, so that we can take people from the center of the asteroid field and safely get out of it, so that they can be moving at the 100 million miles full warp speed, as it were, full spell jamming capacity. So what we need to do is, the spiral effect is a neat idea for, like, I guess obtusely demonstrating how scaling can work inside of a finite space, but with the amount of rocks that are floating around, it feels like the smart thing for me to do is to instead create bands. So what we're going to do instead is we, instead of having it automatically scale as you move to different parts of the map up in speed for you to eventually eject out of it. Instead, what we want to do is we're going to make a number of bands. So I'm going to increase this up to 10. Okay, so we've got the center of the trap, which is where the nautiloid and your ship starts at. And then you want to get out. So what we're going to do is we're going to have your starting point here, and then we're going to have one band here, and each banding is going to have opportunities to get further out. Like we're showing here, you want to get to the edge as soon as you can. But if we're thinking about it, you're in an asteroid field, right? And you're floating around, and you got your ship, and you're trying to get from point A to point B. And it's like you have to navigate through these stones to get to where you want. And some of them are going to be easier to get to than others, as these things balk around and thump into each other, right? So there's risks involved with being hit. The way that you handle risks is by using pilot checks whenever you want to move bands. So here we can have a track that here's a decision, like we're going to be like, maybe it's more like this. So we're building this in real time. This is the creative experience of building an adventure challenge. So strap on, it's going to be messy, or then it's already been. Your character starts here. They're going to have to follow this curve, and this is the first point where they're going to come into an option. And this is going to be a piloting check option, say a piloting check of DC 15. If they succeed in the piloting check, they can ramp up and start to head their way out of the asteroid field that we're representing in 3D space as 2 dimensions. Like, they're able to worm their way through a sequence of asteroids to try to get their way out. If the neogi Nightspider tries to pursue them, they too have to make a DC 15, and if you fail that check, they're going to end up careening off of a rock and taking damage. While you're doing your DC 15, you're trying to ramp out of here, and you can choose. If you fail the DC, you can choose to take wrecking damage as you careen off a rock but made your way through the path, or you can take no damage and stay on the current path that you're on and try again over here which will also be a DC 15. And then we'll have another DC, we'll make this a DC 11 here. So if you haven't succeeded at this point, this one's going to be super easy to succeed. And if you fail, you can work your way back around you can continue your way around the spiral. So let's see. Actually, we should probably make this one. It's a DC 1. As long as you don't crit fail, you can get out. Actually, we should make it default. X equals default, which means it's not a test at all. Which means it's going to just naturally spiral out on its own. So let's put another one here, and then we'll we'll expand this out. But on this track, it's going to continue curving around like this. So when we get to this point, it's going to be a DC 18. And that's going to work its way around the track. And if you succeed a DC 18, you get further out in the spiral. And then this will work its way around, and we'll have another DC, say it's 15, 18, actually 10, 13. Let's make this a 13, because you're only level 5. So let's make that a 13, 13, 13, 10. And then we'll make this one 16. And then we'll make this one a 19. Which takes you to this outer track. And then it'll be a DC 22 to escape undamaged. So every time you do this, you can take damage, or you can continue into the spiral and continue your efforts again. So we drop a thing here. We have 16. And if you're successful, that takes you here to 19. And if you're successful there, that takes you to 22. And of course, if you fail the check, you can just choose to take the damage to get out. So any of these things you can choose to get out, or it's unavailable to you and you have to continue your path. Meanwhile, you're being chased by a neogi that's shooting at you and trying to catch you and drag you down. So while you're running this 1, 2, 3, 4 tracks, working around the spiral, you've got an enemy that's chasing you that is also taking damage. And if at some point it takes too much damage, it's going to have to back off the attack and just, piss off. Here. So I'm building this is the first time I've built this spiral system here like this. So I'm not sure what the proportions are supposed to look like, but I think it's something like this. So 16, 16, 16. And we'll make that one 19. So different points of access will allow us to have different options. So the way that one of these option trees is going to have to be is we're going to have the path here through asteroids like this. So we're building kind of like a space, like a spaceship tunnel, or like a spaceship dungeon that you can move your way around, but you won't know what your next option is moving through the asteroid until you get to the next location. You see that there's a DC to make. Like I can drop a trap right here and make that a DC 13 to avoid the trap, which would be like a hazard of something hitting you, like just a stray asteroid hits you, for instance. So, but we have this here, and here is if this is where we're at, we've got one track that leads outward here. We've got the track that you're on here We've got another track that takes you into this decision-making point, and you've got a point here, like from down here in the 13 scale. This automatically links up from this fail path here. You had to fail, if you failed your way around the spiral from 13, 13, and 13, it'll automatically succeed into the 16, into the 16 track that's running around. So this 19 is actually a 16 here, which is the decision to push your way out to here, which comes around to a 19 here, so I can actually put the 19 here. Here. So you got these 4 tracks that are leading you in a new direction, each one, but they're one way. They're one-way doors, basically. So once you get to this decision point here at 19, if you don't roll a 22 to span out to the outer edge, if you roll below a 19, again, you can take damage to grant yourself access to that edge, or you can just continue around the track for another opportunity, but you're still being shot at and pursued by the Nightspider while you're going around the track like that. And this spiral effect that we're doing, it's not a literal spiral that we're going through. Again, it's representing that three-dimensional clustering effect that asteroids have of bouncing, like Star Wars and shit, you know, like bouncing off of each other, and it's a risk, and you have to weave your way through the asteroids. That's best represented by this spiral decision map. So that's the idea. So right now we're building this spiral. We're learning how to even do this stuff, since it's the first time as far as I know, we're the first people to ever do something like this. So we're exploring new space. We're figuring out how to make three-dimensional spatial puzzles like asteroid fields become something that can be represented and fun to do on a two-dimensional surface in a grid map. So this will be included in the Light of Xaryxis adventure. We got the 60 pages of mechanics, and then probably around 25 pages of adventure conversion, because like Light of Xaryxis doesn't do anything like this. Of course they can't. They've got too many page constraints. They have a great scaffolding for an adventure with some key encounters that are spelled out for you to interact with, but it really is up to the DM to flesh these things out. So we're fleshing this thing. We're actually fleshing out more adventuring content for the Light of Xaryxis, but we had to build 60 pages worth of space mechanics of how gravity works, how scaling and movement works, how you can interact with other ships at the same 5-foot combat scale that you're used to in a dungeon map. As well as like encounter distances and sighting things with your naked eye or a spyglass or a wild space orrery. You have to have there's no rules here. They're all the DM chooses. It's like basically anywhere in Light of Xaryxis or a Spelljammer's Adventure in Space, anywhere it says DM's choice or DM's decision or DM chooses or dump it on your DM, and then every time it says that, it doesn't give you any insight as to how to make that decision. So the 60 pages of text that we have in the mechanics, that's how to make those decisions. Like, here's the decision-making tree, and here's the mechanics that go behind the decision that you have to make in the first place, so you can make a good decision. And from those mechanics, we can build all sorts of new, interesting design challenges for adventures, which I could then use the same mechanic to apply to Descent into Avernus when you're running around in Mad Max trucks. I can do the same. I can come up with the same ideas for weaving your way through 150-foot wide bunkers where giant Golgoroth demons were designed to run around and smash stuff with fists. So anyway, got comments here. Hey Hans, I like the spiral idea. Sounds like you put a lot of thought into how to build out a variable scale idea. Branching choices, maintaining tension, worked into the escape map sounds really fun. Thank you. Now, the way that the adventure is designed is that before the enemy ship that's hunting you, as Light of Xaryxis is written, you've got like maybe one. They don't even suggest you fight it at all, but it's inferred there that you can if you want. But they don't give you any specifics about the crew, about what they're equipped with, other than just check out if there's a Nightspider in SAS. You can look at the weapons that it has, and I don't know, have them board you if you want. You know, that's kind of, it's up to your DM. So we're upping it for the DM. Is that, can I coin that phrase? Instead of leaving it up to the DM, instead of leaving it up to the DM, we're leveling it up for the DM. Is that a good catchphrase? So that's how we're doing. So yeah, I just have to build the spiral so I know what the decision path looks like. And then we can start fleshing out the space. All I need is a 1 square wide corridor that your ships can fly through, so I can have asteroids like this. And if you look at the last few sessions that we've done, obviously we built out a shitload of asteroids, so I could theoretically take a lot of those asteroids and just cut, paste, drop them into position. Which is going to be a huge pain in the ass, but you guys are worth it. So I'll probably end up doing it. Let's see. So yeah, that's the decision making there. I'm going to drop this let's just a little bit further and get back to here. So let's see. We're going to have, we want to think about how far a ship can move, so they can move up to 12 squares is what they at minimum 4 squares as an object interaction if you're in a, well, we control what ship they're in right now, so that's not as big of a problem. But I just want to figure out what the spacing on this is. Obviously, I'm not eating up all the space there, but if I can build this thing smaller and tighter, then I can have a smaller map on the VTT so it doesn't crush people's CPU so much. I have a monster of a machine, 32 RAM, and a 2200 Asus graphics card, so I can crush face on building stuff, but not everyone. Some people working on tablets or like really crappy laptops. So if we're going to start here, I'm just gonna write the letter S here for start. Let's build a corridor. That then opens up to the first decision making, like this. And I'm drawing it like lines right now, but when I get to it, I can do things like this. So sometimes you'll be able to get your ship through. Like, maybe you can get your ship through. Like, if you wanted to try to squeeze your way through here, maybe I'd let you do it at disadvantage. So, like, if you're on the 13 band, you can try to squeeze through rocks, which it then becomes permissible. So, here's this. We want to have bigger rocks around our entry point, because the way that the mechanics work is that an orrery can pick up a distress signal that's being sent out by a cantrip. Basically hit the button and it'll start squawking a magic mouth. I'm in trouble, I'm in trouble, I'm in trouble, I'm in trouble, something like that. And so a ship can come in and find it. But if you're using your orrery to try to detect something, if your ship is adjacent to a same size or larger object, you can't pick the ship out if it's hiding. So the ship will be hiding until you get close enough, and we're just gonna narrate that you close distance into the ship, that you find your way into the asteroid field, and oh crap, there's an autoid there, and we're stuck inside this spiral, so we can't get out. So, well, let's deal with the spiral, and let's deal with the nautiloid, and it's a derelict, so let's deal with that before we figure out what our next move is supposed to be. That's kind of the narrative behind it, because you're not the captain of the ship at this stage in of the adventure, so you kind of just get railroaded into these crappy encounters because the captain that's running your ship doesn't have very good decision making. Doesn't have good decision making ability. But yeah, we can do that, and like I can have a pocket here. That. What's a good map size on Roll20? What size is pushing it too far for the platform? I don't know Roll20. Okay, it can do a square up to 100 by 100 squares, and the larger the resolution of each square, the more difficult it gets. I typically work at a 100 pixel resolution, so that each square is 1% of it. It makes it really easy for me to have really liquid-looking smooth maps and not get choppy when I import it. I can typically run a map like, say, 50 by 50 without any problems. And a 50 by 50, say at the 5-foot scale, That's 250 feet worth of map, which is enough for any Spelljammer ship to fit on, like a Hammerhead ship. But the Mad, what is it? Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I think it's like a 400 by 400 foot space. It's really freaking big, so you can break things up into chunks. One of the adventures the Eberron adventure that I stream here occasionally, that breaks up the dungeon into chunks by room. There's a master map that shows a full dungeon, but then the zoom in to make it easier for your CPU, you can build these little map piece vignettes that, like, if I have I can have like if this is the size of the room and it has a door here and it has a door here, right? All I have to do is I can build a vignette of this size. Like this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this 5 by 5 square. And then, depending on what my computer is able to do, you can just drop in a number of these squares. Like, here's the next room that we're looking at, and it has a doorway that goes off this way and this way. You can have multiple rooms like this linked together to make it easy for your computer to do what it needs to do, or depending on the power of your computer, you can scan out. So you have both of these rooms already here, so they're already built this way. So depending on what your CPU power is. Typically, I recommend staying at 50 or smaller. I think most systems are able to choke on that easily enough. They can do that without necessarily choking, is what I'm trying to say. It really is on the DM to be able to build and maintain a map inside the Roll20 space, but players with really crap CPUs or like tablets or, God willing, God forbid, their phone, then they will have choppy issues. Like, they'll lose sound if they're being forced to chug a map that's too hard in the Roll20 system. So things can break down like that. This is a 2x2 cluster that we're making here. So I'm going to make a separate layer map here. Layer map. So that's a square 13, which doesn't belong in a normal asteroid-y looking map space. But yeah, One Book Studio that runs DMsGuild and DT, like Drive Through RPG and other, third party, like other role playing companies or third parties that use 5e content. OBS is the hosting site for kind of like Twitch.io and whatnot. People probably know that in general by now. But the word I'm looking for is they have a partnership, or not partnership, but OBS and Roll20 are now the same company, as I understand it correctly. So they have access to uploading PDFs and stuff that you do onto Roll20. So you should, us creators should be thinking about how is your project going to be used in the virtual tabletop, because they're assuming that you will and can as well. So using the tools that they provide for us is a good way of having a better audience retention and continuing to grow your own IP, which is what I'm mainly. I've got multiple books on the DMsGuild. You check the link down below, so you can see the kind of stuff that I build. And if you don't use if you're not using a specific Wizard of the Coast content adventure or something, you're better off publishing as a third party and doing DTRPG so that you retain rights and ownership of stuff. I'm building an audience. I'm mostly concerned and interested in folks interacting here on YouTube. So like and subscribe, share, check out the links down below, check out all my content, help me get to 1,000 subscribers, and help me get to my 10,000 hours as lickety split as oh shoot, I need to put a timer. Hold on real quick. I'm gonna grab my phone. I need to put a timer on to make sure I don't blow over my time, because I've got 45 minutes before I need to log off. But I'm going to be back later on today at 1 o'clock Pacific time, which is in about 6 hours from now. I'll be back on, and I'm going to be working on the Marshall Powers project. Marshall Powers is the MTG color mana system that I have built, but it has a stack of 130 some odd maneuvers that can be paid for with mana. For like your fighter, for instance, you spend 3 mana and now you can make 2 attacks as a bonus action this round or whatever. Whatever. Like Action Surge Light. There's 100 and some odd options. So 100 I think 137, or was it 173? It's a lot, 137. There's a shitload of them. So I'll be doing that at 1 o'clock in about 6 hours. So you can check in with that. I do that every Monday. And then later on tonight, I'll be doing more Eberron adventure mapping, like I'm mapping here. So check all that out if you want. So I'm going to rebuild this, so it's like that. I'm trying to build this curve idea here like this. So here, I think I'm spending too much time worrying about where I'm at, and what I need to do is we see what you're doing there, Kearney, with your asteroid field. So let's just get back to actually building the spiral and then fill in the gap after that. So we'll go to there. We'll have an entry point here. We have an entry point here. We'll have an exit point here and an exit point here. That works. So you go into the switch house, and the switch house is a 2x2 space, plenty of space for you to maneuver around inside of. But it only takes you. It's only one way. So once you're on the track, this whole space becomes unavailable. This all becomes unavailable to you, and you continue further and further out. But your goal, generally, you want to have combat finish in like 4 to 6 rounds. It's pretty satisfying combat. So we should be able to continue with this decision making here to go to here. Yep, that worked out. I'll have this here. Yeah, fuck it. Let's just merge this down for now to keep things simple. See, if I make these things asteroid shaped, and I do like, yeah, if I make this asteroid shaped, I can put a path to it. And then that can just be an object that we get rid of. And then, oh, look at that. It's actually a pathway that opens up for you. So then we have another, like an asteroid. We'll have to build these things so that they're self-contained and close themselves off. But if we put an asteroid here that we can then get rid of, we could actually take this asteroid and then move it to here, so it blocks the path. So there's no going back. You can turn around and there you go. So we can shift the pieces around to close off access, or you can just in Roll20 you can just take an area and you can just fill it in and it becomes black. So if we just keep the background a limited palette, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. The fog of war prevents visibility on stuff, so I think we can manipulate that. But for now, this is how we do it. Yeah, that's your first track. And now we're out here in the second track. Let's see. Let's see if putting a track here. Again, I don't know how this stuff is supposed to do. 16. Okay, so this should not intercept here. That's a fallacy. Get on this track. Huh, yeah, good point. This would be the correct way to do it, because, and then you can leave it open, because if you want, they can just go this way instead, and that'll lead them again to here, which will take them this way. So yeah, that works. They can go either way. I don't think I actually have to care which path they go with. That's super cool. This is why we do these things. We have to figure out how this crap works. It's my face mouse squeaking. Time for more coffee, my mouth says. Gateway here. $13, $16. $19. I think we can build this way. So what we'll do is we're going to playtest this on Thursday to see how the fun plays out. Like, is it fun at all? And if it is, we can then figure out, well, what's the scaling on this supposed to be. Nope, that's not a good idea. Do that. We'll have a pocket over here where the neogi hangs out. You know, like that. So the neogi could potentially find their way out. Here's decision making. Here's a way to lead you right back to where you came from. So we'll be able to worm our way around, but it'll be a limited path that they can worm through. So 16, 19, 13, 13, 13. Fill that in so you know it's your starting point. Start. 13, 13, sleep around. 13, just takes us out to the next layer here. 16, 19, and then 22 takes you out of the, I'm gonna press save right now because I didn't like what that blip was. I don't know what that blip was that just came across my screen, but it's certainly it's certainly encouraging me to save my document. So the end. Go to here. No, that should also be 13, 16, 19. Honestly, that could potentially be enough. So I can slide over like this, and depending how long you've been inside the maze, I can have more structure over here and less structure over here, but the end result is you still getting out of the map. So if you're making multiple if you have multiple failures, you're getting stuck inside the spiral. So having to wheel your way around and make 20 checks It's the amount of squares you're going to have to move that's going to make a big difference for you, assuming you don't have a rogue or a monk flying your ship and you're limited to a object interaction to move the ship and then a standard action to use the dash action to give you that double movement. I need to be looking at roughly every 10 squares because there's 4 to 12 squares on average that these ships are going to be able to move. Neogi can only move 8 squares, but they could also spin a bonus action to go up to 12, so they can use object interaction, standard action, bonus action to get 12 squares, where your team only has to use an object interaction at 6 squares and a standard action at 6 squares to be able to move and to be able to move 12 squares. So the Neogi can keep up with you by blowing all of their pilot resources, while your team will probably only have enough resources to be able to pace at that speed. But if you have a rogue at the helm, you can speed up. There you go. So yeah, that's the thoughts behind that. Maybe here to here. That will lead to 16 here. Better keep these things blocked in. Let's see, 13, 13, 13. 16, 16. 16. Yeah, that's the way to do it. We're figuring it out. There we go, like that. Just like that. Okay, it's very convincing. Woof. This is getting to be kind of a long movement, you know? Thirteen, 13, 13, 16, 16, 16, 16, 19. 19. Yeet. I'm thinking this thing through. How many paths choice on average will the party need to make to escape? Can they get stuck Since it looks like you allow several directions at each intersection. It doesn't matter. It won't matter which direction they go, because like if they get to like say this decision point here at 13, if I fill that in and then erase it into a 13, if they make a decision point here, if they fail the check, they're stuck on this inside track, which will eventually spit them out into the 16 scale, into the 16 DC track, which will eventually take them into the 19 scale track, and then they just automatically get out. So if they fail, like if they fail, they'll eventually get out anyway. Like here, they automatically get out no matter what. So technically, there's only three D. Again, these guys are 5th level, so their proficiency bonus is +3, and they're going to at best probably have a 4, maybe a 5 in their ability check. So that's an 8. It's possible. They could have expertise. Like this is a highly specialized pilot now that has an 8, has a 20 in their stat and expertise in the piloting proficiency. So that'd be a total of 11 that they could potentially have, which is ridiculous. But most of them are probably going to be around a 7 or an 8, which means a 13 isn't that threatening. A 16 isn't that threatening. A 19 is basically 50-50. So at this scale, that's appropriate. We're not trying to trap them in here. They'll get out eventually anyway. They automatically, as they say, automatically fail forward by working their way through the spiral. But each of these points doesn't prevent them from moving up to the scale. They have to, if they succeed the check, they can move to the next track for free, or they can choose to take damage and do it anyway. So worst case scenario, they start here, they go 1, they take the damage, they hit here, they go 2, they take the damage, and then at point 3, they take the damage again, and then they can choose to get onto this outest track and automatically escape. But they've taken 3 crashes in the effect of doing that. So crashing is colliding, is falling. At the 5-foot scale, you're only objects that fall at the 5-foot scale that are affected at the 5-foot scale, like medium, large, up to colossal sized creatures at this 5-foot scale take D6 times 10 feet of movement, up to 200 maximum for 20 D6 damage that we're used to. If you're in a ship that fills 50-foot squares, like the Wasp ship is a 2x2, a Hammerhead ship is a 5x5. These are effectively medium, large, and gargantuan-sized vehicles. So they take D6 times 100 feet of movement, up to 20 D6 times 10 damage. So they could take up to 1,200 damage on a horrible smashing wreck if they're moving 2,000 feet in a movement. At this 500-foot scale, if they're here, they go 1, 2. It's 2 squares, so it's going to be 2d6 times 10 damage that they take, and their ship is going to have 300 hit points. And the pilot that's commanding it at 5th level is probably going to be around 40 hit points, maybe even 30 if it's a wizard. So if that 2d6 crashing damage can be reduced down to 2d6 normal damage if the pilot takes it. So you're either screwing up your ship or you're taking hit points of damage. Actually, that's not true. Crashing can't be taken by the pilot. So you have 300 hit points total. Each one of these crashes is at most 120 hits. So if there's 1, 2, 3, if you take all 3, chances are you're going to take your ship down to, like, say, half damage to be able to automatically get out on your own. So I'm going to build yeet space here. So they stay in as long as they want. If they've taken a lot of damage and they can't afford, like if they fail the check and they can't afford to take the damage because they've already, like say the 300 hit points that their ship has, if they've already taken 170 hit points, 190, so let's say 200 hit points, them going through this 19 is a serious risk because it could just outright destroy their ship if they do. So Let's see. I've still got 20 plus some odd minutes. Hold on, I'm checking things here. Check, 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 check. Here. More coffee. So it's up to them. If by the time they get to this point on 19, if they're like, yeah, we're not taking a lot of damage, I can afford to take the crash hit. Let's get to this outest track and yeet out of here. Totally legit. Totally legit. But I don't think we need to have more than 3 scales. Because even if your character is like ultra spec'd, it's still going to be almost a 50% chance here at the outest track. Yeah, I think I'm pretty comfortable with that. So we're going to go to here. That's a fallacy. Let's see. We're at 19 here. Let's move it back in. 22. That's yeet. And you get to automatically leave here. That's our basic structure, I think. Now that we have a loose structure built, we can start being a little bit more discretionary about how are we looking. How are we looking? $13. If they succeed here, takes them back to here. Just like that. How are we feeling right now? One, two, 3 checks, and you automatically 22. One, two, 3, 4 scales, and this goes, jeez, long stretch. Can I? So how? So assuming that you fail every check, how far do we have to move, right? So you got one square, 2 square, 3 square, 4 square, 5 square, 6 square. And then assuming that you succeed 7 square, 8 square, 9 square, 10 square, 1 square, 2 square, 3 square, 4 square, 5 square, 6 square. Cool. It takes you into the middle. And then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 12, that's 1 round. 16. 1, 2, 3, 4. That takes you into the mill again. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That takes you into round 2 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That takes you into round 3 here. So it's possible that you can go blip, 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 blip at 22. And if you're willing to take damage each time, or if you're successful in your check each time, you may only need like this little of the map. So maybe we should be taking that design principle into account. So that's 3 rounds. Let's take it further. So we got one round. We got 1 round here. That goes to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 2 rounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 2 rounds. 3 rounds now. 1, 2, 3. You're in the mill. 4, 5, 6. And that becomes round 4. That is not 16, 16. Yeah, 19 to yeet. And then 19 automatically yeets here. So 19, 19, 19. Yeah, having a 22 here this early on, I think that makes sense. But not having as much design challenge here. You've already gone through all this, and you've already been attacked so often. This makes sense. The fun thing is that the neogi knows this place better than the team does. It's like if they fall behind here and the team doesn't hit the track here, they could potentially drop into a lower track and catch up with the team if they're keeping an eye on you. So the neogi will automatically succeed the check. So if the team, like at this point, if the team starts to get away, the neogi can take this inside track to try to keep up with you, to then intercept you over here. They're not going to know if you're going to succeed this or not. No, the action economy should be good enough. Them being able to move 3 times 4 versus your 2 times 6. Chances are they're not going to have a rogue at the helm. It's probably a safe gamble. But again, if they careen and if they take the crash damage, they have to make a Constitution saving throw, a concentration check. And if their concentration check gets screwed up, then they're disabled and they have to regain concentration in the next round. That gives the neogi a round to catch up and deal damage or potentially board them again while they're sorting, while they're recovering from being scuttled like that. Hey, Lord Seeker, how you doing? Don't mind me, just here showing support so the algorithm starts bringing you the views. Oh, God bless you. Thank you. Yeah, so we're building this spiral of death. 13 pilot check, 16 pilot check, 19 piloting check, 22 piloting check, and you escape. So, let's see, 19. I think the 22 here is appropriate. If you've made it all the way around to here at this 16, maybe you should just be able to automatically get out. Like this. Because you've already gone through all these checks. We can build this thing so that... Because like going backwards just leads you to another check. Going backwards here just takes you to another check. You can go backwards all the way to here if you want and take another check. It's just, going backwards is not good. Going out of the spiral is faster under most circumstances. 16. So yeah, I do not need this. So that closes down that spiral there. Yeah, that feels good. 16 to 22. That's a jump. You know, I got. Do you draw final maps yourself? Yeah, absolutely, I do. Here's an example. Well, I mean, if you check in my playlists, you'll see other ones. But what is this one? The Mama Hunt. This is another one of the maps that I built. Here, this is the final form. This is at the 50-foot scale. So you start off at Topola's Tower. And here's 6 points that we made up for different locations where space sharks could show up to feed. So your goal is to try to kill one specifically that you've been. You get your MacGuffin back at Topola's Tower if you kill the shark. So each one of these squares is 100 pixels. This is a 20 by 20 grid, so it's 2,000 pixels by 2,000 pixels, well within most Roll20 capacity. And this is the color version. And this is the black and white version. So you can see that they're synced up. So I build the black and white map first, and then I color it like that. And so the color version will be a VTT asset that's going to be in a zip folder for when people grab it off DMsGuild. The color map will also be in the actual pages of contents of the PDF that people look at. And then there'll also be the black and white version in the zip file. And each of the grids will be broken up into a 10 by 10 square so that you can fit, if you put an 11 by 17 page through your home printer, it'll do a 10 by 10 grid with a 1/2 inch margin around it and still leave 6 inches open at the top. That I can put like the ship you're supposed to have, the skiff that you can have, Topola's character, a Kandori whale, and the space shark as little assets properly sized as like in this margin space here. So yeah, I build all the assets myself, and that's why we get paid the big bucks. So give me a second here. No, that's the wrong. That was Saloon. Right. So yeah, here's our color map there, and I'm going to close out of this one. Equals no. And then the book cover that I did for this as well. If you haven't seen that already at the beginning of the session, I built that from scratch. So there you go. Here's a Star Moth ship and being grappled by a nautiloid ship. The nautiloid has multiple tentacles that it can grapple with, but the Star Moth is equipped with a slashing ram. So that's just a giant blade that does like 2d8 times 10 damage when it hits the nautiloid, and the nautiloid has like 300 hit points. So like that can take a chunk out of it, like a really good chunk out of it. So anyway, yep. Thanks. Oh my God, yeah. If you, I don't know if you know my work or not, because I don't recognize your name, Micah, so I don't know if you've been around or not. But if you check in the description down below, there's a link to DMsGuild. It's got a 33% off bundle for all the DM, sort of like this series of MTG color mana books that I built for D&D. You might not be into that. I'm not asking you to buy them. You're welcome to. But the point is that if you click on any of those books and you open up the preview, cover to cover, 100% preview, it's the assets in the map that gets people to buy it. Like those color mana books, there's color tokens. There's a play map for you to move your mana around to tap and untap mana while you're using it, or to burn it when you're casting spells. There's also spreadsheets of the different color assignments for all the books up through. I'll do Spelljammer this week as well. But up through Strixhaven, all the like 575 spells are all broken down by color in the zip files. So like you get the core, all the stuff in the core mechanic books that you see. But again, there's assets that go along with this. So like if you like this stuff, spending $5 or $10 to get the zip folder to improve the quality of your life, so you have things that you can manipulate and you don't have to do it all yourself. Like all that do it yourself work, I give you all the assets if you're willing to pay for them. So that's kind of the deal. I'll let you read the thing for free, but if it's useful to you, then there'll be more goodies in there that you're going to want to have, and it makes it worth you buying it. And then I bundle everything so I can discount everything. What I often see is that somebody will just grab like Spell Point Warlocks, for instance. They'll just take that for free because it's pay what you want. You don't have to pay for it. And then they'll like take Universal Spell Points for free because, or rather like the revised color mana spell list. They'll take that for free because it's a pay what you want. Normally what I see is when somebody grabs the revised color mana spell list and they take the Spell Point Warlocks for free, that gives them a 33% discount on everything that's left. So they end up getting $36 worth of book for about 18 bucks if they grab things for free offhand. Like every time they grab a free book, it reduces the cost of the bundle, and the bundle itself is already 33% discount. So if you take all the free things, you end up paying only half price. It drops 33% down to 50%, and that's totally great with me because I keep selling them because people like MTG. It's awesome. So like the more stuff I give away, honestly, the more money I make. It's ridiculous. The adage is true. Give people stuff, and they'll be willing to support you. So that's my money tech talk for the moment. So, but yeah, I built all the assets. I got into designing adventures and making supplements because I wasn't getting paid enough money as a freelance artist. So I had to become my own art director. I had to hire myself to do artwork. So I build the book, I hire myself to do the artwork and the cartography. I build the assets, and then I set a price point, and then I can take all those maps and I can sell them as like pay what you want, or separate assets that designers and stuff can use if they want to. So I've got multiple streams that I can pull money from, so I can afford to give the majority of it away, as it were. You know. So let's see. We got the 13, 13, 13. That takes you to 13. Oh, that's right. We need an auto success path in here. So let's build an auto success path to here. And again, if you get here and you're like quote unquote outsmart me and you go this way, you're either gonna have to hit the 13 to get into the outer track, or you're just being led back to yourself again. You're doing it again, or you outsmart me again and you hook to the left and you get into this track, and you're either gonna roll a 16 here, or you're gonna roll a 16 here, or you're gonna get through for free. And now you're still gonna have to hit a 19. So going backwards doesn't outsmart me. It just gives you you still have to make rolls. So I don't care which direction you do it in. You're making rolls. So we were at 4 rounds when we got to this track. 5 rounds, that's about 6 rounds. Yeah, and you can get out. So you can get out, worst case scenario, you can get out in 6 rounds. By failing here, like by going through here to here, along this track to here, or from this track to here, or from this track to here to here. All of these is 1, 2, 3, 4, you're out. 1, 2, 3, you're out. 1, 2, let's see, you've got 1 check here. And then, oh, that's right. Got that. So yeah, we don't have to build that like that. We can just do, I think that's the correct way, like this. Still figuring this out. I've never done this before. This is brand new design work. But this is the kind of design work. Now, since the mechanics that we built, since the scaling works, I mean the scaling works. We've done months of playtesting using these changing scaling and using Descent into Avernus. We changed Descent into Avernus into a Spelljammer campaign for this playtesting. That was fun as hell. We'll put that out eventually when all the mechanics are built. And now we're doing Light of Xaryxis, and we've done a few encounters in Light of Xaryxis as well already. So we've got, since July, we've been testing these mechanics in Descent into Avernus, and it just happens that they work with Spelljammer as well. So we've had like the vehicle mechanics for trucks, Mad Max trucks, and Descent into Avernus work almost identical to how Spelljammer mechanics work. It just came out, so it was easy for us to just by default build it. So that was actually a really happy coincidence that we were just building the thing no matter what. And we're like, oh my god, Spelljammer, let's just build this bigger and redo it. And so that ended up working out. So that's 6. So you got 1. So we start here. We got 1 check here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get 6 checks at most by failing every attempt. You automatically get out with every failed attempt in 6 attempts. And it looks like it's going to take... I got to do some math here real quick. Hold on, let's see what this is. And I have not cared for Spelljammer until seeing some of your work. Oh, I'm not going to lie. Thanks, Micah. Really appreciate that. My whole full... I came from first edition. So my whole philosophy is your character's supposed to be accumulating minions for you to get killed or for them to do things for you. You're supposed to be building a domain or like a kingdom by the time you get into your mid-levels, because you're powerful enough, you should be doing that. You should have an army. You should be having large vehicles. These are all things that we should have access to that have been stripped away from 2nd edition to 3rd edition when these things became optional feats. And then at 4th edition, they stripped all that stuff out. And then 5th edition, they ground it down even further away from dungeon mechanics into character storytelling fulfillment. Like they're lessening the way that you impact the world, and they're emphasizing the character story at the individual level. Like that's the focus. That's what the majority of people seem to be saying. Like they want to express this is my character. I want to portray my character. There, like Jeremy Crawford is a thespian sort. His first role-playing game was a dating simulator in high school. So like social engagements and relationship building and role-playing is more of an emphasis in this current edition than past editions. I imagine we'll see that for 1D&D, like 6th edition as well. So my whole idea is 5e is the best mechanics that we've ever seen for role-playing using the D20 system. Is elegant, but in that process they stripped out all the kingdom building and command aspects of a role-playing game that I love. I loved all that stuff. We always built kingdoms. We always built minions and followers and designed our own things, and so I'm adding those back in, and in the process of doing that, showing you how those things exist inside the adventures that Wizards had already published, but that wasn't their focus. So our value add to the mechanics that we bring is like, here's how you can actually use these mechanics in Wizards of the Coast content. If you like Xaryxis, wait around until we finish the guild and the kingdom mechanics for you to turn Elturel into a citadel that you can then command and control to fight or work with devils against the demons that are trying to take over the city. Like we can like Kingmaker for Pathfinder has been really big. Well, they flat out said we haven't play tested it. It's like, what? It's $100. Anyway, I'm ranting. So I believe these things should be used. They should be used with the adventures that Wizards is producing, and that's yeah. I'm not into flea mortals. MCDM is bending like into a 4E sort of space. They're high risk reward mechanics that aren't really necessarily 5E. I respect what they do, and they certainly have gorgeous artwork. But yeah, it's Flea Mortals is kind of like basically a 4E supplement. So I build my own monsters. It's no use to me. If you don't know how to make monsters, I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years. I know how to make monsters. I know how to threaten you. So they have cool ideas, but I'm not willing to spend $90 or whatever they want for it to get some more ideas. I've already got 6 monster manuals from 1st and 2nd edition, 3 monster manuals from 3rd edition, another monster manual from 4th edition. I've got 8 monster manuals. I really don't need Flea Mortal. So if you're new to D&D and you are trying to figure out how can I manipulate monsters and stuff, you could get Flea Mortals. I recommend home field advantage on the DMsGuild more than anything. But yeah, I mean, if you're into that stuff, if you're an MCDM fan, you may as well support them. But there's value there for people that need it. That's what I'll say. I'm not always a monster designer myself, just because all my shit's always on the fly. So like I can give you ideas about monsters and stuff, but they're not really important to me. This is supposed to be 13 here. That's probably the best way to build this. Like that. So 16, that takes us to 13. And that's 13, that takes you to 16. And that lets you out automatically. That's 1, 2, 3, 1. Oh, sorry, you start here. 1, 2, 3, and now you're automatically out. I'm cool with that because there's a lot of distance. Then the Neogi have plenty of opportunities to shoot at you. I'm gonna have to do some math real quick. Yeah, definitely a 4E design. So I'm gonna do some math here real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's go with worst case scenario. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 90, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. 35 squares, 135 squares. So that's going to take you 11 rounds at speed of 6, which is what your ship has. That's going to take you 11 rounds to go through every fail point. 1 fail point, 2 fail point, 3 fail point, 4 fail point, 5... Oh, that's not a bad solution. 150, that's 11. That's too many. That's too many. But it is what it is. So let's see what we can do to tighten. Let's see what we can do to tighten the spiral. So we got 13, 16, 19, get out. You come around, you got 13, 16, 19, so I can reduce this down to, I'm just trying to reduce the footprint, you know? 13, 16, 19, and then get out. That's cool. I can actually have this curve into itself. That's fun. Oh, that's also fun. A big junction here where you can go in any of these directions that lead you to 19 or 22. That's great. That's good pathing there. Like I can build out this with asteroids here and like asteroids here like this, like to hedge these things in, right? So I can build my space like that. 13, 16, 19. Oh, I gotta save and reopen the program because it just crashed on me. There. And I'm at 8 o'clock. So I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to cut it there. I'm going to reopen this real quick. Let's see if I can build this path real quick and then get out of here for the day. I'm going to be back in about 5 hours to work on the mana power system that I have. There it is, Yogi Hunt. The Martial Powers project that we've been working on Mondays. I put in about an hour or so at lunchtime on Mondays to start building that out. I'm playtesting that. I've been playtesting that since level 12 for the past year with my own home table. We're 17th level now. So we've seen a good span of power usage there. But we're going to be back here at 1 o'clock going over more power mechanics with Martial Powers. So like and subscribe and check that stuff out later on today because we build stuff to be played. I'm going to go to, the 16 here. I can get rid of that track. And then 19. 15, 16, 19, 13, 16, 19, 22, 13, 16, 1, 2, 3. I can actually cut this here so that you escape here and you're done. Because it's going to be what? 1 check, 2 checks, 3 checks, 4 checks. I can do that. 1, 2, 3, 4 checks, or 1, 2, 3, 4 checks here. Or 1, 2, 3, 4 checks here. So your quickest, most efficient path is only 4 checks, which is potentially 3 or 4 rounds worth of movement. I'm pretty good with that. Here, 16, 19, interesting. 13. How do I want to do? Yeah, like that. I can actually take this and do like that. 16, leading me here. And that's your exit here. I'm trying to tighten the spiral down so that there's less space that this thing's eating up. So I can probably do like this and like drop this all in the whole space so it just stays a little tighter. Because if you're clever, it'd be 1, 2, and then you can get out. But but the neogi is gonna start here and come in and attack you while you're gonna start here being attacked. So presumably you're going to go this way. So I can get rid of all of this. What happens if I get rid of... I'm just trying to suss out how we can do this. 13. Here's your 16 here, which you didn't opt for. So it leads here. Leads you into another 16. So it's going to be 1 check, 2 check, 3 check, 4 check, or 1 check, 2 check, 3 check. I'm good with that. Ooh, I could even make this... Make this a 19. And if you succeed, you can automatically get out. And if you fail, you're stuck still for a while. And that can lead back here. And this is a 16 that's easier to get out. I kind of like that. 13, 13, 13, 19 stucks you in, so now you're at a 16. 19, 22. I think I can tighten up this path like that. I think that's going to work. Here. Yeah, MCDM books are gorgeous. But most of the stuff is, I mean, I guess Fleet Mortals is DM facing. If you need that stuff, go for it, you know? Nothing wrong with it. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. That gets you out. Oh, that's fun. I can even just, I can do this too. So I can get rid of all that. Sixteen, 19, 19. Is that good? 1, 2. This might be all I need. Oh, that's not bad. So we got 1, 2, 3, you get out. 1, 2, 3, 4, you get out. 1, 2, 3, you get out. 1, 2, 3, you get out. 1, 1, 2, you can get out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, you can get out. 1, 2, 3, 4, you can get out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 or 5, you can get out. 1, 2, 3, you can get out. Yeah, that's pretty efficient. Okay, cool. So after all that, all we really need to do is work on a map of this size. So this should do it. So I'm going to make this a bit bigger to point this out, and then we'll be done. So here, and I'm just blocking all this stuff in just to be rude to myself. Here and here, just make it easier for folks to see at a glance what pathing we have here. 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 I can even build a little offshoot thing over here. Yeah, what is this sitting? What is this sitting inside of? I could probably even make this a little more. Well, I mean, this is still sloppy, so we can tighten this up. So hold on, I'm gonna do this real quick. Bring that in like that. Then let's drop this in like this, and that should give us our overall structure of how things are built. We can even fast track this over here like that. Cool, so how much space is this eating up, right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. So this is sitting inside of a 40-foot square here. So that's a 40 by 40 square, roughly. So there we go, 4 by 4. It fits within the 50 square constraint that we were talking about earlier on in your roll 20. That's actually probably a lot more space than we need, so we could probably potentially trim this down to a 30 by 30 square if I noodle with placement a bit. Yeah, that's our build. So this is honestly, this is crappy. Like, this is about as good as I get at my home game in quality. The better the map is, the more obvious it is to your players that you've switched from a preset encounter using gorgeous maps to completely spontaneous improvisation off the cuff, because everything's been reduced to crappy lines and stick figures. Like, you go from full color, lush, 300 DPI, gorgeous painting down to a stick figure. It's like, obviously that stick figure is not part of the planned adventure he's improvising. I, as a DM, like to prevent them from knowing when I do that. So I always use shit maps in my adventures all the time. Everything is garbage, so they'll never know when I'm improvising or not. But obviously it's a paid product. People want quality, so I'm going to put the time into the assets. That's how we get paid the big bucks. But I'm out of time, so I'm going to have to cut stream here. I'm thrilled that you guys showed up. Thanks for the great questions. Thanks for taking interest in the project. The whole thing, you can view the whole thing for free online at DMsGuild once it's released. It'll probably be like a $15 price point if you're willing to buy it, and if you do, there'll be a shitload of assets. This will have Light of Xaryxis. It'll have all the tokens in it. It'll have the map scaling in it, both black and white and color. We'll eventually, after this is released, we'll then have Mad Max trucks, the Infernal War Machines, as a sister product to this. And once that's done, we'll be doing the Guilds and Kingdoms book, which is going along fantastic. You can check the earlier episodes of the In Command playlist to see how the army and the guild and kingdom mechanics are working out. Those are fantastic. That'll be a separate book. And then the armies and squads will be a separate book. So it'll be 4 books of mechanics in total, all of which, when you pull them all together, would be, if you bought them separately, probably like around $50. But if you bundle them all together, it'll end up being like 30, which is comprehensive mechanics from 5-foot characters up to dozens of, like hundreds of miles of space that you can control, all using the same square scaling 5e mechanics, as well as the kingdom system and the guild system. In the playlist, we have an example of us converting the Simic Combine from Ravnica, from what they offer us with Renown, into a scaling guild kingdom system that lets you go from, hey, I just created my first monster, to I can now produce thousands of monsters to sell to you as warrior troops in an army if you guys need to stock up and like go attack the Robo-Belt or something. So like all that shit just curves out and it works great. It works great. So I'm geeking out at this point and I'm on the clock. So I gotta go. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, check out my work, check out my Patreon where I got links to the playtest content. I will be back in about 5-ish hours and we're gonna work with the Martial Powers project some more. So, Audi, see you guys later. Thanks so much.